Reggie is going to introduce our special guest speaker this week.
Georgia, who's from Tulsa, it can't be all bad. We have a distinguished speaker today, and just a short story. I've always said that I tend to like people I agree with, and I saw Jan's Facebook page over a year ago, and I joined her Facebook page, and she was from Texas. And you know, she was from Texas. Well, back in February, the Lions Club had their gun and knife show. We were going through, and I walked by this booth, and there was a big life-size figure of her, and advertising martial arts or something. And I said, look, there's Jan Morgan. And she said, well, if you look to your left, she's standing right there. So she's moved to Hot Springs. So maybe she'll straighten out Arkansas. Jan is an Associated Press award-winning investigative journalist, nationally recognized, Second Amendment advocate, media personality, and conservative columnist. She is sought after keynote speaker at Second Amendment and Tea Party rallies across the country. Her conservative voice has generated a following of over 350,000 people on her social media pages and website, janmorganmedia.com. She is also an NRA certified firearms instructor and has personally trained thousands of women gun basics through her class. And as you can tell, she's armed and female.
First of all, who's got my business cards? Oh, you all have it. Everybody. Next, if you're a veteran, if you served our military, would you please stand for me? So I can see. I sincerely say thank you so much for your service to our country. And I want to apologize today for the way Americans treated you, many of you, when you returned home. And I am ashamed of the way our government continues to overlook our veterans. If I were the president, or if I were a United States senator, I assure you I would be doing something about that. I'm going to take my jacket off and roll my sleeves up because we've got a lot of territory to cover, and thank you. Many of the things that veterans fought for, those of you who put your lives on the line, did so for something that you believe in that's bigger than yourself. It's our nation, our country, its liberties, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Regardless of what the media said, regardless of what liberals said about why you were where, I know that in the bottom of your heart, there was a sense of pride, and the real reason you were serving is because you love your country, and you answered the call. Right now, those things that you fought for, that you believed in, that you still believe in, they're under attack. Our Constitution is under an unprecedented attack by some very powerful forces. And I'm traveling all over the country. One of the reasons that I was telling, I was so ashamed because I speak at Tea Party rallies, Second Amendment rallies. I've been from New York to Florida, the southern tip of Florida. I've been all over this country speaking at Tea Party organizations, Republican organizations, conservative groups. And I haven't made it to a single Tea Party meeting in my own hometown now here in Hot Springs. I've been trying to, but I've only lived here 6 months, and it seems like every time I would almost get to a meeting, something would come up and I would have to fly here or fly there, and I wouldn't get to make it. So I'm really excited to be here today, and I assure you I'm going to try to get here and get involved with you, as adopting you as my own group of fellow patriots. I'm looking forward to working with you, doing what I can to help with your issues on the state and local level. Just understand that I'm involved in a lot of national stuff too, which affects all of us. So what I'm seeing around this country is something that we're seeing here. I listened to your leaders here talk about today, and those are individual liberties, rights, increased government they're strangling the people of this country. We're taxed to death. I hear from people all over this country. I go to speak at rallies and I hear them say, I see the frustration on their faces. They're upset, they're frustrated. Many of them are. When it became apparent, I was watching TV and I was feeling pretty good, you know, as the returns were coming down, and then as things began to become apparent, that we were not going to win this election, I sort of went into this coma. I couldn't talk. I couldn't move. And you know, some family members were there. Some Janet's, you know, it's time to go to bed. I just couldn't speak. I just sat there with my jaw dropped. I could not believe that the American people re-elected a socialist, a man who was wanting to strip them of all the liberties that our founding fathers fought so hard to hand us on the silver platter. I just couldn't believe it. And you know, we had just had Benghazi, all of that mess. It was just that we had Fast and Furious. There was so much indictments on this administration that were public knowledge. I mean, of course there was the birth certificate issue, and there were all kinds of these other issues that people were trying to prove, but there was enough evidence, clear evidence of acts of treason committed while this president has been in office that should have been a clear-cut election, regardless of who we put up there as our conservative representative. It wasn't. And I'm not here, you know, the fact is he is in office. Whether it was a legitimate election or not, I don't know. I know that there is a company in Spain that was responsible for counting the number of the votes. I don't like that. Why we let a foreign company count the votes? Scytl, S-C-Y-T-L-E. If you've not heard of that, check it out on the internet. It's true. Michelle Malky did an article on it. Can't prove it that there was anything wrong, but you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. Usually, that's what I was taught anyway. At any rate, I wanted to talk with you about the Second Amendment today because, as you know, we have an anti-gun administration. And it seems that once he was reelected, the states who were anti-gun already felt empowered by his presence another 4 years. Oh, we can do what we've been trying to do and wanting to do for a long time. And then, of course, we had the Sandy Hook massacre. And, of course, every time there was any sort of gun-related crime on the news, the mainstream media put it out there. Of course, I spoke at a rally in Albany, New York, Second Amendment rally, about a month ago. And all the media, when I got out of the taxi, there were over 3,000 people, patriots at that rally. Believe it or not, there are patriots in New York. I was like, wow, I can't believe this. I'm so excited. No. They're the silent, you know, they're the silent folks that are just minding their own business, and unfortunately, they're in the wrong place. But I was given the charge of trying to get those people rallied, to rally the troops because the SAFE Act was about to be passed in their legislature. So they had this huge rally on the steps of the state capitol. The legislature was about to convene for its first day and talk about the SAFE Act. And my job was to get these people rallied, for us to be so excited, for there to be so much purpose behind this group that legislators would have to come out of the building to address this crowd. Now, we didn't do what the union folks did and the liberals did. We didn't go inside the Capitol and bang on the walls and create, you know, a situation. We were good, law-abiding, peaceful protesters. Well, I wouldn't really call us peaceful, but we did it the right way, and we were on the steps of the Capitol. But when I got out of the car, the taxi, and I looked out, and there were over 3,000 people already there. And someone with the Tea Party grabbed me and said, hey, Fox News wants to interview you right now before you speak. And then there's ABC, CBS, and NBC. And I thought, wow, here's my chance. See, I've been a mainstream media anchor. For 20-something years, I've been an anchor for ABC affiliate, I've worked for an NBC affiliate, and I worked for a CBS affiliate. My last mainstream media job was an anchor for CBS in New Orleans. I left the mainstream media because I got sick and tired of the liberal bias. I got tired of news directors telling me what stories I could tell and how I could tell it. I was the rogue reporter in the newsroom. It was always me. Of all the reporters in the newsroom, it was always in the news director's office pounding on his table saying, but that's not the way this story was. You know, this is the story. And no, I'm not going to cover it if I can't tell it like this. I mean, he just looked at me when I walked in his office and would roll his eyes instantly because he knew it was about to be a battle. I finally gave it up because, and the reason I stayed in it so long is because I thought, we need conservatives in the news business. But it doesn't do us any good to be in the news business if our information is being stifled. So I stepped out of mainstream media. Now I own my own media company called JaneMorganMedia.com. And what I tell is the truth every single day. Just like Glenn does on his website, just like maybe some of you do when you're talking on the phone to your friends. I just put out the truth, and I don't put any conspiracy theories out there if I can't substantiate my information with facts. I don't say it because there are so many liberals and so many haters out there that are just waiting for the opportunity for a conservative news person to slip up. And the one time that you say something that you can't prove is the one thing that will haunt you for the rest of your life. So I'm very careful about what I say, and everything I put out there, I can document with facts. So remember that when you check out my website, and know that if you ever go there and you look at the articles, you can click share, and you don't have to worry. You can know that I did my homework. That you're not going to have to go on and tell your friends on Facebook or in your email, oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was correct information. Oh, I'm sorry that wasn't all accurate. You can rest assured. And my Facebook pages, my website information is all the cards, the business cards I gave you. What I'm seeing around this country from people is the frustration and the hopelessness. That rally where there were over 3,000 people, there are over 19,000 people that should have been there. There were entire buses of people that were supposed to come to that rally that backed out. It was snowing. That rally took place. There were people that stood for 3 hours in the snow and listened to speakers, and I was the last one. They put me up there last, of course, so, those folks hung with it. And that's the kind of spirit I'm talking about. That's the kind of passion and determination to fight, to stand up and fight. Isn't that what the NRA is asking you to do right now? We need you to stand up and fight. This is no longer the time to sit back and say, well, I was taught that there are some subjects that you don't talk about with company, and that's religion and politics. Well, guess what? Those days are over. You have to talk about it.
That's right.
Apathy is destroying our nation.
Amen.
Political correctness is destroying our nation. I meet people every day who tell me, oh, I agree with you 100%, but I can't really put that stuff on my Facebook wall. I can't really talk about that because I've got friends that are Obama supporters. I have friends that, don't believe in guns and blah, 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 blah. It almost makes me want to throw up.
Amen.
Because we're not the place anymore where we can sit back and let the ignorance of other people prevail. We owe it to our friends. We owe it to our kids, our grandkids, our neighbors, our family members. We owe people the truth.
Ourselves.
And Thomas Jefferson once said, all that is necessary for evil to prevail is for good men to remain silent.
That's right.
You can't be silent anymore. Now, one of the things that I said at that rally, I took the opportunity to really hammer it to the news media because I know how to talk to the media because I've been one of them, and I know how to talk in sound bites so that no matter what I say, they can't edit it so that the information that I want to get out gets edited out. So when I had the opportunity, I said this to the mainstream media. I said, you are quick to go on the air every single time any person in this country is injured and a gun is involved. But what you're not telling the American people and what you're doing is absolutely negligent. It's deceitful because you're not telling the American people that 90 million gun owners in this country with over 300 million guns killed no one last year. What about all those stories? What about the 2.5 million people last year who pulled a gun in a situation of self-defense and saved lives? When have you told the people that story? Most of those cases, the trigger was never pulled. The person simply had to brandish a firearm to stop an attack. And let's face it, those of us who own guns, we don't ever want to have to kill anybody. I never even have to pull a gun on someone. But by gosh, if my life is on the line, if I see the lives of other people on the line, and I'm armed, which is all the time, you'll be amazed how many firearms I can carry on my back. Seriously, there are people who do that. Ladies' firearms classes, one of the things I talk to women about is, you think that you can't conceal carry because these big bulky guns, but I can show you little guns. I can show you all kinds of guns, very powerful guns that you can conceal carry. And I challenge them. I say, tell me, how many guns do you think I have on right now? And they're always shocked because there are so many unique ways to conceal for women out there now. There are briefcases, there are purses, there are ankle holsters. If I have on a pair of pants, I always have a .380 caliber Ruger semi-automatic strapped around my ankle. I wouldn't turn to that one first. No, I'm going to pull my .40 caliber Glock out of my purse first. That's one of those last resort things. You know, you resort to the .380 when you're out of 40s, or if somebody got your purse and you can't get to your 40s. Of course, the way I teach women to shoot, you won't run out of 40s. You should be able to stop your attacker with one shot, first shot. Anyway. We've got to stand up for our Second Amendment because it is our last line of defense against tyranny. So when you're talking to your friends about the Second Amendment, and the reason I'm asking you today to talk to them about it is because if we lose our right to bear arms, folks, that is seriously the beginning of the end. And I can substantiate that statement with facts. Do you know that in the 20th century, 170 million people, think about that, 170 million people have been annihilated by their own governments after being disarmed. The gun grabbers know this. I really, really don't think that anti-gun people as a group are after our guns because they really think that more laws are going to make it safer in this country. Because statistics have proven that the cities and states with the most restrictive gun control laws continue to consistently have the highest crime rates, gun-related crime rates. And on the flip side of that, the cities and states that have the least restrictive gun control laws have the lowest crime rates. And I'm proud to say that I'm a native Texan because in Texas, it would be easier for me to count on one hand the number of people who do not own a gun or carry guns. Because you see, I was laughing because in the newspaper, that big national story about the newspaper that printed the addresses of all the people who had concealed carry guns. Remember that story?
Yeah.
I laughed because I bet they won't do that in Texas. Texas, you go to a convenience store in Texas, and I'm not exaggerating, folks. You go to a convenience store in Texas and you walk around in there, somebody drops a glass and it shatters, you're going to see about 10 people in that store go. Oh yeah. The women, the men, everybody who's legally able to carry a gun carries. And I don't know anybody in Texas that doesn't carry. I'm sure there are people there, but you know, we just don't believe in that in Texas. I am proud to say now that I live in Arkansas. I came here because I chose to come here. My daughter just graduated from high school. She's now off to college, University of Arkansas. And I'm finally free to go where I need to go. And I have been driving to Hot Springs, because I lived in Texarkana, and we don't have an indoor firing range there. So I was driving here 2 or 3 times a week just to work on my marksmanship skills so I could pass my certification. Because see, I was going to be in a class with a bunch of guys, and I wanted to be the best shooter. So, so I was really working hard on that. And I will tell you that from my state exam with state police, it was just me and a bunch of guys and for the marksmanship. And I beat all of them except for one, and he was a firearms expert trainer in the Marines. So he shot the bullseye out of the target. I was sitting there watching him and thinking, oh geez, and it's freezing cold, we're outside, all kind of stuff. Anyway, I ask you to stand up for the Second Amendment, and I ask you to go to my website. I make it easy for you. All you got to do is go to my website. There's something on there every single day about the battle for the Second Amendment that's going on in our country. And you know, even though we've got it pretty good in Arkansas, we've got a lot of legislators because they know better than to mess with our gun rights, okay? But we've got to stay on them because states are stepping up right now all over this country, and they're empowered by the president and his administration, and they're stripping people of their rights. I mean, you just look around, the battles are going on everywhere. But those battles are not impossible to defeat if good people will stand up and fight. You look at Chicago, for example. I want to run out of time here. Chicago. I was asked to speak at a rally there, and while I was there, they had me teaching a women's firearms class. There were 56 women showed up for that class. I was like, wow, these are some people starved for firearms training. 56 women came and spent the day with me in a firearms class, going over gun basics, 3 hours in the classroom and a couple of hours on the range. And they're hungry for the right that many of us take for granted. You know, those people in Chicago, where there's the highest gun-related crime rates in the country, where it has historically been anti-gun, those patriots fought, and they fought, and they fought, and they knew it was going to take time, but they worked just like, you know, your leaders here are saying, you've got to get involved locally, and you've got to stay on your people that you've been elected. You've got to elect the right people. You've got to talk to your friends. It's like, it's a lot of little things that you do that help the big picture. And you may think, well, what's me not getting on the phone bank? How's me not doing that? I'm not going to, what am I going to be able to accomplish? But every time you talk to someone and they take the time to listen and you change their mind, think about how many people they might impact. And that's how the wonderful thing in Facebook works. You know, I put a post on there and 15,000 people click like, 10,000 people share it on their pages. And when you think about on all those pages, how many people on their pages share it. So you see, the same thing works in your local and state government if you just do what you can do to get involved. So I guess the main message I have for you today, I'm going to try to finish in time to let you ask some questions. I don't know if your group shrunk after the election. I know that Tea Party organizations around the country went through a dry spell after that. People were just so discouraged. They were so fed up. Many of them said, it's over. We're done. America's done. I'm headed to the hills with my guns and my stuff and my bug out bag and the whole works. I'm ready. I'm going to stay. I'm going to get off the internet. I'm going to disassociate myself from society. We're through. You know, I understand that mentality. I think it's very wise to be prepared for the worst. There's nothing wrong. I don't have any problem with preppers. I think they're smart to be prepared. But I don't think it's smart to give up. Not yet. I know it feels at times overwhelming. But think about it. Okay, we've lost a battle. But I want you to think about the spirit of our founding fathers. If anybody had an excuse to feel overwhelmed and want to give up, look at what those guys went through. Can you imagine how they must have felt? Out-armed, out-clothed, they were starving to death. Many of them barefoot, traipsing through the snow. Don't you think that those guys at times were thinking, we're done. How can we possibly beat this? But you know what? They never gave up. They never had a defeatist attitude. They never gave in. And by sheer determination, passion, and a heart, because they knew that what they were fighting for was worth dying for.
That's right.
Thanks, Jack.
They were willing to lay it all on the line. So what I did that night, when the election was over and Obama was going to get another term, and I couldn't sleep, I went back and read again the story of what our founding fathers went through. And then I started feeling ashamed of myself because I thought, what if I suffered? That's true suffering. That's real passion. So I want you to dig down in the deepest recesses of your soul. And I want you to think about those guys and what they handed us on a silver platter. Have you ever really worked hard to give someone a gift? And you spent a lot of money on it, or you worked really hard and then you gave it to them and you're so excited for them to open it because you just know they're going to love it. And then they open it and they act like, oh, thanks. Can you imagine how our founding fathers would feel if they could see the attitude of the majority of Americans in this country over this gift that they gave us? So I want you to find that passion when your friends, when you talk to your friends, I want you to get out there and I want you to tell them what's going on in this country. And when they start coming in this country, they want socialism, we can't be. I want you to go back and you talk about the spirit of the founding fathers, and I want you to make them feel the way I hope you feel right now, and that is, how could I have ever thought that it's time to give up? That's what drives me, folks. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm here today. That's why I go all over the country. I go into some of the biggest battle zones of the Second Amendment. When I was asked to go to Chicago, people said, "Are you crazy? You can't conceal carry there." I get threats all my life consistently. I've had to get the FBI involved in my personal life, I don't know how many times, because of what I do. Not just because of the Second Amendment. Most of the people that, the liberals aren't the ones who are after me. It's the Muslims. I do a lot. I'd love to come back and talk to you sometime about the Islamization of our country. I've wrong. I've studied it thoroughly. And when I post about the Islamization of America and civilization jihad, I can back it up with facts. They don't like that, and so they come after me because what they want is for me to shut up. And most of my posts for over a year were about the Islamization of our country. I had to set that aside because of the Second Amendment issues and all these other attacks against our Constitution. But yes, that's one of them. Islam wants to replace constitutional law with Sharia law. I have lots of information to share with you about that. I'd love to talk to you about it sometime. But the death threats that I get, and because of that, and I have to have security most everywhere I go to speak. When I went to North Carolina, they had the militia meet me at the airport and hand me a gun. So I'm not. You think I'm exaggerating? I'm serious. I mean, there were 3 of them on the stage with me when I spoke, watching. I was never left unattended. The cabin they put me in to stay that night, there were one outside the front door, 1 or 2. There was some in the back. I mean, the threats were real. Threats were real. So when people heard I was going to Chicago, they're like, "Are you crazy? You can't even conceal carry there. You can't even have armed people protecting you there. I mean, you're just up the creek." And then I had a guy here, Chris Meggers with Patriot Close Combat Consultants. He'd been on my Facebook for some time, and he contacted me. He said, "Jan, are you really going to Chicago?" Why? I said, because that is the battlefront. Those people are fighting right now for their constitutional right to conceal carry, a right they've been denied for decades, and they're making headway. They've asked me to come, and I have to go there. We have to help out our fellow patriots wherever the battlegrounds are. He said, "Okay, I want you to come to my hand-to-hand combat class. I'm going to teach you some self-defense techniques." And I was like, I'm just a little female. And what am I going to do if some 6'2" guy comes after me? What? He said, "You would be amazed at what you can do." And I was like, "Yeah." I went. Ladies, you need to take my armed and female class. I have Chris teach you for an hour some of these techniques. By the end of my second class with Chris, I dislocated a guy's arm that was 6'2", weighed 225. I felt so bad. I looked at him and said, I'm so sorry. While they were trying to get his shoulder back in his socket, and I really did feel bad, but I also felt better knowing that I know what to do now. It's not about brute strength. It's about body movement. It's about knowing the vulnerabilities on the human body. Anybody can do it, ladies. And it's also knowing that if somebody comes up behind me and grabs me like this, when I'm getting, putting keys in the door, whatever, 99.9% of the time I have on stiletto heels. And the first thing I'm going to do is, bam. And there's also the pull and twist technique. And then it's rolling out of the way long enough that if you just give me a split second, I can get to my gun. But I knew, so it's a great class. And ladies, my youngest students, there's one of my students right there. My youngest student was 12, I think, and my oldest was 80 years old. Teach you basics from bottom to top. By the time you leave my class, you will definitely outshoot any man in your life. Nope, that's me. Oh, and I also have had men show up for my armed and female class. It's like, if you're willing to sit here in an armed and female class, you're welcome to come. So, want to leave you some time to ask questions so that after you leave today, you'll feel like I've answered any questions that you might have for me, and I'm also willing to stay afterward in case you don't have time to answer. Yes, ma'am.
I just don't have a question, but I would just encourage anyone in here who does not have a concealed carry license. We do this with everybody we meet. Please take the time to get it, even if you think you will never carry, because that's one of the strongest supports for our Second Amendment.
That's right. And veterans, if you do not already have a concealed carry permit, I'm telling you, better get it fast.
Yep.
Because the government is after you first.
Yes.
They've decided, and I did talk to a lady with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, when she came out to the range. I'm at On Target indoor firing range a lot. I mean, I'll be there all day Friday. I'm running the range. I'm also a range safety officer, so I'm there teaching a class, Army female class, all day Saturday. I'll be there all day Sunday, after church, Sunday from 1 to 8. So, but this ATF lady came in, and while she was there, I said, you know, what's coming? She said, if you have, I said, because I was looking at the sheet, she was talking to us about the sheet, she said, of course, there are changes that are going to take place on these sheets where you have to fill out to get your permit and to get a firearm. She said, I said, those changes are going to come in the middle section, aren't they? Because in the past, it's always been, have you ever been, sent to a mental institution or whatever. Now, it will become, if you have ever been prescribed an antidepressant, we're talking millions and millions of people at some point in their life went through a period of depression and needed an antidepressant. Doesn't mean they're crazy. They're going to be after veterans. Veterans, because they say, well, what they went through, that was so much trauma, they're going to have post-traumatic stress syndrome, and we just can't afford to let them carry guns. Got to stay on top of this, folks. And yes, you're right. Get your concealed carry permit, ASAP. Yes.
That application process, are you talking about for concealed carry or for federal purchase?
Federal purchase and conceal. I'm not sure about the concealed carry forms, but yes, on the federal forms that they have, you have to. One of the questions. There are already questions there. I think there are 2 now concerning your mental state, but I think there are much more to come. So.
Jen, what about what do you know about the I think it's a UN that President Obama just signed
I just
recently?
wrote an article about that today through my website. It's called the United Nations Small Arms. No, it's just called. I called it the UN Arms Treaty: unloading a pack of wolves.
On a second amendment.
Yes,
Yeah.
unloading a pack of wolves on a pasture of defenseless sheep.
But he signed it though, right?
No, he's not signed it yet.
I thought he already signed it.
No, he's not. My article, what we cover is the fact that the UN has passed it, but he wants to sign it. He's kind of feeling the waters and trying to figure out if he can or not. Because if you recall, if you remember the first time the UN Small Arms Treaty came up, it was during the Bush administration. President Bush not only said, we're not even going to come sit, we're not going to give our approval on this. He also said, we're not even sending anyone to sit at the table with you folks to talk about this, because when it comes to gun rights, that's a national issue, not an international issue. President Obama, as soon as he was elected, not only said, we'll sit at the table and talk with you, he sent Hillary Clinton with a mandate. Yes, we will. The United States will support this treaty. So we know where he stands on the issue. Right now, there's a group, the Senate has done an unofficial vote and promised to not support it. However, we know how those things can go. So it has to be ratified by the Senate, and of course, it needs his signature.
How many votes does it require to ratify? Is it
It's like
2/3?
60, yeah, it's like 2/3, 60-something%. I don't think it'll be ratified, but the problem, there are a lot of problems with it, and even though the United Nations wants to tell you it's about, it's just about, we're trying to cut down on the amount of illegal gun smuggling that's occurring in our country, so we can cut down. So we can cut down on gun-related crimes. Folks, that makes about as much sense as more gun control laws on law-abiding citizens. The criminals, they don't pay attention to the law. So the only people who are affected by more laws are the law-abiding citizens. So that same concept applies on the international level. That's the way I feel about it.
Alan?
I mentioned to Sheriff Saunders, I said something about his opinion on gun control. He says, well, he's all in favor of Second Amendment rights, but he also is in favor of the stricter background checks. Can you speak to that?
He's a Democrat.
I think the Second Amendment is sufficient. That's where I stand. I am not. We have over 20,000 gun control laws on the books right now, and I think that's 19,999 too many. Say you only get to carry a gun if. And if we allow the government to do further background checks, and we let them go into our medical records, who's going to decide who's crazy and who isn't? I mean, what, all veterans, because they've served our country and had to go through some very traumatic experiences, what, the government deciding who gets to carry a gun? Right. I will say this, never before in my lifetime, and I'm 50, I just turned 50 in February, never before in my lifetime have I seen so many states bow up against the federal government. I'm so excited. There are over 27 states now that have passed the Firearms Freedom Act. If you go on the internet and type it up and look, it's really exciting. And there are a number of other states. There's only a handful of states now that are saying they're not going to do this. And this basically, Montana started it. They basically passed legislation in their state that said, you know, we don't care what you do on a federal level. We are a sovereign state, and the citizens of our state are subject to the laws that they want to live by. So we're not going to acknowledge any of your federal firearms laws, and we're not going to enforce them. And furthermore, if you come in our state and try to enforce them, we're going to arrest you.
And in Arkansas, that bill is in the committee as well.
Love that.
We have a question on.
What's the bill number?
I don't have it in front of me.
Yes.
Kind of 3 or 4 parts to the
Okay.
problem connected.
Okay.
Based on your background in the media, national media, what do you feel like is their agenda and why? And does the truth matter in their agenda? And are they just damn stupid about history? What is are they dead?
My opinion is that their truth is not an issue. When I got into journalism, it was a noble profession. It's no longer a noble profession. You have to look at the bottom line with the news media is pretty much the bottom line of most everything else in this country, and that's money. TV stations, news organizations, they have to pay their people. They have to have money to operate, and money talks. And the money people have been busy all these years, while we've been busy going about living the American dream and raising our families and doing the right thing and being good citizens. There has been a consistent, very, no, they're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. Very consistent effort to undermine the very foundation that this country was built on.
So is this about global government?
I believe it's about global government. I believe it's about socialism. I believe it's about destroying everything that our founders fought to give us. That I honestly believe that. And though there are young people in the media who don't really get all that, they go to work, they get their first job, they're really excited about their job, and they just do what the boss says. So there's a lot of that as well.
Okay, Glenn?
One of the things that liberals keep talking about when they talk about gun rights is, well, why do you need an AK? Why do you need big magazines? Do you think you should be allowed to have military-style weapons? At one time, we were allowed to have them. And, I mean, you go back to the Gatling gun, you go back to the cannons. At one time, civilians could own them. And so, yes, we did have the right to own military weapons. When did we lose that right?
FDR.
But, I mean, what was the bill? What was...
I can't.
That was
It's on the internet.
1871.
1871.
When the United States become a corporation.
Yeah. They wear rights to own.
Glenn, what I will say is
If you're a
this,
citizen,
I
you
get
have
asked that all the time because
Citizen of the
one of
United
the photos on my Facebook page is me with my Bushmaster AR-15.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the liberals come at me, every time I write an article, they come at me, a Second Amendment article, they come at me, why do you need an AR-15? I said, it's not that I need it, I have a right to own it. Why do you need a Corvette as opposed to a Volkswagen Bug? It's not that you need, it's that you have a right. And I don't have to justify to you. I don't have to justify why I want a 30-round magazine or a 150-round magazine in my Bushmaster. And you think I should only have 7 rounds. I don't have to justify that. And folks, you know, you start giving an inch, you were asking about, well, what's wrong with extra background checks, the sheriff? When you give an inch, they take a mile. And then you let them in that door, you're opening the door. The next thing will be registration, and registration leads to confiscation. You know, what they want is a record of everything you own, and they do not have a right to know.
Dan?
Isn't George Soros tied to that Spain company that counted the
Yes.
votes?
Yes.
I thought so.
Cycle is the name of the company, SCY.
Can you explain more on the I'm thinking about getting a small handgun and taking a class.
Take my class.
Well. Paperwork, and yeah, I was put on an antidepressant at one point when I was diagnosed with cancer. But I
It depends on how you buy your gun.
2 weeks.
There are ways that you can buy your guns legally without having to fill out any paperwork anywhere.
Right.
Okay, number one, right now, yes.
Right now.
Number two, if you will come to my class, one of the things I do, I walk in with an arsenal. Most women don't bring guns to my class. Many of them who take my class aren't even sure if they want a gun. They're like, I just don't know, I don't know, but they're there, which is all I'm asking. And by the time I finish with you, and I explain to you all the differences between calibers, the differences between a semi-automatic and a revolver, the difference between a fully automatic and a semi-automatic rifle, shotguns, I will help you decide what, number one, what gun fits your needs most, okay? Because women have small hands. It's really important that the gun fits the hand. And then we have to determine what caliber you're most comfortable with. I start everybody, all the women off with a 22 caliber, a level 22 Walther, and it's like shooting a BB gun. And we work on your marksmanship, your positioning, your breathing, all the things that we need to fix before we move you up to a higher caliber. Some women like to stay at the 22, but most of them, before I finish with them that day, they want to shoot my AR. So I'd love for you to take the class.
All right,
This
Skip,
Saturday.
you get the last question, and then Jen will stay, okay, and ask any other questions, but then we want to make sure we have time to wrap up, okay?
Thank you, Glenn. I think really that what they're really think they can achieve is the enhanced background checks. I think they realize that they can't right now ban assault rifles nationally or with that in mind, if we allow them to set the terms of the definitions, then you're opening yourself, as you said, to that. What would be your argument to Senator Pryor, or your argument to the average person that's saying, well, what's wrong with increasing the background check? What would be the
My response is, I'm for, we aren't even enforcing the laws that are already on the books, and my response is, we need less gun control laws, not more. We need to be working toward arming American citizens rather than disarming American citizens. We need to work toward getting these ridiculous signs out of business doors that say guns prohibited, because that just announces to these mass killers they're looking for their next, their moment of fame and glory. I mean, it's like announcing, hey, right here in this mall, hundreds of defenseless victims, come on in. Yeah. So,
I don't do business there. I don't do business there.
Yeah.
And I let them know I don't do business.
I don't go where I can't be armed unless I'm having to do a speech. Want to close real quickly. Would love to see you at On Target Indoor Firing Range. Love to see you there. And remember, I want to give you a challenge. I talked to you about the spirit of the founders. I want you to talk to your friends. I want you to talk to Tea Party members who haven't been to meetings lately. And I really want you to make it a personal challenge of your own to bring a younger person to these meetings. We need to get the 30-somethings and the 40-somethings. There's a reason they aren't coming, and it's not just because they're busy. We need to get them here, and then when we get them here, we need to make them understand that we have some common ground. Though many of them are upset about the anti-gay, the gay marriage issue, they don't want to associate with any group that might be pro traditional marriage. Yeah, we need to talk to them that we don't always have to agree on every issue, but we can find common ground. Fiscal responsibility, less government. There are things that we can connect with, and we need to get those people here and make them understand that. I love talking with you. I promise I'm going to make a serious effort to get to these meetings so that I can get to know all of you and get involved with your efforts on a local level. Please take my card, check out my website, share my stuff, and look forward to seeing and hearing a lot more from you.